Hey, tennis fans, you are listening to Match Point Canada, the official podcast of Tennis Canada. We are also members of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm Ben Lewis, joined alongside Mike McIntyre. Our clay court swing continues, Mike. We finally saw our first glimpse of Rafael Nadal back in action on the clay court surface. We have Madrid coming up, big title from Casper Ruud, and a Canadian / Kiwi and US Open champion joining us for this week.
I feel like we have Erin Routliffe on the podcast on a pretty semi-regular basis now, and I'm so pleased about that because I got to say she's just one of the nicest players out there. And I remember feeling that years ago when we saw her at the Tevlin Challenger here in Toronto, and my goodness, has her career ever exploded since then? I mean, she just turned 29 about a week and a half ago, and how many players explode into the top 30 of their sport for the first time and then go all the way into the top 10 like she's done over the last, like 6 months, basically. So it couldn't happen to a nicer person. She's very generous with her time with us. And I just love hearing about the dynamic between her and Gaby Dabrowski, who really, when you think about it, are still hitting their stride and still don't fully, know each other as partners on the court, as well as many of their peers who've been together for far longer. So it's really been a fantastic story, and it really just seems to keep getting better and better as the results have continued since their US Open win last summer.
Yeah, look, it's been a match made in heaven, I think we can say. And like you said, I love when we see players kind of break through in later stages of their career. We're used to maybe peaks happening sometimes too soon, if anything. So seeing a player sort of build and progress and get better as they age, maybe now, someone in my 30s and you, Mike, someone in your 40s, we have that soft spot for when the older veteran players improve and get it done. And that's not to say like Routliffe has many great years ahead of her, but she's obviously formed this formidable partnership here with Gaby. So let's listen into your interview with Erin Routliffe.
Very pleased to welcome back one of the world's best doubles players to Match Point Canada. She represents New Zealand, but is also proudly Canadian. She's a US Open champ, a WTA Finals semifinalist. She's Erin Routliffe, and she's our guest this week on Match Point Canada. Erin, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you again, and happy belated birthday, I want to say, first of all, which I think was just about a week or so ago.
Yeah, thank you.
And besides that, I guess you were celebrating while you were over in Asia, representing your country in Billie Jean King Cup competition. So did you get a chance to celebrate at all, or were you too busy getting ready and playing that event?
Yeah, celebrated a little bit. I'm not a huge birthday person, but we were playing against China on that day. So it was a tough match. We lost, and then we played the doubles. It was kind of rough. We lost 14-12.
Oh no.
And then the whole like crowd and the whole like the people of the organization like brought a cake on court and like did this whole like happy birthday thing. It was really cute. Obviously at the time I was like, wait, I just lost 14-12
Right.
on my birthday. Like this is so rough, but it was really sweet of them and I really appreciated it.
Maybe
I'll
helped you
definitely
get
never forget it.
maybe helped you get over the sting of the loss, I guess.
Yeah, no, I definitely couldn't even think about the loss. I was just trying to like think about cutting the cake.
Yeah. And look, I know that was a different environment. You're representing your country, and obviously you want the best for that in that environment. But the losses have been few and far between, really, for you lately in doubles. And holy smokes, you're up to world number 5 in the WTA doubles rankings. You've come so far, even just since we last spoke. I feel like, can you believe how far you've come in the last 6, 8, 10 months, really?
Um, yes and no. I think obviously I'm super grateful and super proud of myself. I think playing with Gaby has been an unbelievable experience and I'm really excited just to keep going. Like I think obviously tennis is so niche in the sense that like you put in like all these years of hard work and like grinding to get to this place, which I'm obviously really happy to be here. But yeah, no, I guess, yeah, my life has changed a lot in the last, like you said, like 6 or 8 months, which is pretty surreal. And I'm still kind of just like taking it all in and just trying to enjoy everything. Yeah, because I think I'm really lucky, but obviously still working hard because we have a lot more goals that we want to achieve. So it's an exciting time for sure.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I mean, I just feel like how excited I am for you and our listeners are for you because like we've spoken 3 times now, I feel like in that time period. And in the beginning, like when you were just teaming up with Gaby, you were ranked, I think, which was like a career best at the time, just outside the top 30. And that in itself seemed like really great. And then every time we
Mhm.
talk to you, it just keeps getting better and better. And can't wait to see what you have in store next. But any big like flashy purchases? You driving like a hot new car since you cracked the top 10, or what can you brag about, or not brag about, but what can you share in terms of maybe something a little extra that you wouldn't have done previously?
Yeah, that's tough. I think honestly, I've probably like flown business a few times, which I mean, I look at it as like an investment into myself just because like it I can't believe the difference it makes like on my body and like playing if I'm going to a tournament and have like only a couple days to prepare. Um Probably like had a couple really nice meals. I bought myself a bracelet. That was probably like a big purchase, like right after US Open, but
Yeah.
not too. I'm still like I'm like a saver still.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. I mean, look, as a professional athlete, like nothing's a given, so I wouldn't doubt that you'd
Yeah.
want to put some away for the future.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode of Match Point Canada. If you'd like to follow along every week, give us a like below. Hit the subscribe button as we're trying to make 15,000 subs. Check out the first episode of Tennis Nation, recapping Canada's historic Davis Cup win from 2022.
Yeah, that's interesting. Just even the flying business class, because like I only fly economy, and you get to wherever you're going and you're cramped in for so long. And I
Mhm.
can imagine as a professional athlete, then you might be, playing even within the next day or so. Um,
Yeah.
I remember covering my first big tournament like abroad, which was in Dubai back in 2008, and I was flying economy, but I got lucky on the way there. No one to my left, no one to my right, so I could just kind of
Oh
spread
yeah.
out in economy and make it feel like business class. But yeah, I would imagine things like that seem almost like a small thing could actually be quite big in terms of getting there feeling well rested and ready to go.
Yeah, it's like a luxury. It obviously is like a luxury thing, and like you don't dread flying as much. When I do get the chance to do it, I don't dread it as much because flying like long flights, that's exactly it. And also as you get older, like everything hurts way more just in general. So when you get off the flight, you're like, oh my gosh, this did not hurt me 5 years ago, and all of a sudden you have a bad back. And like obviously our bodies are our like livelihood. So it's like really important. So it's like a luxury, but at the same time, you look at it as like an investment into yourself, which I think it's a good, I don't know. I'm hoping I'm doing the right thing by doing it.
I support this, and my
Thank
body
you.
has nothing to do with my livelihood, but everything definitely hurts more and more every year for me, I
Yeah.
can tell you. So just give it 10 years and see how you're feeling then.
Yeah, seriously.
Hey, we've been giving you a lot of love here on this podcast, and our Canadian listeners definitely consider you one of their own. I want to know, what's the reaction been here in Canada, maybe, at home in Montreal, to all the success you've had this year, and also in New Zealand. I know you're probably not there as often, but do your achievements get recognized there as well?
Yeah, totally. I think obviously my family, I am here with my sister in Montreal. So like my family obviously they're super proud of me, and there's been like a couple times I think where I was walking around, but I think I was that in Toronto or is that I think it was in Toronto where I was walking around and I like went out of like the doors of the mall and someone was like on the phone and she was like, Erin Routliffe? And I was like, that's wild. Like wild. This was like I think maybe like a week after Gaby and I had won US Open. So obviously it was like on the news or something. But even just like that small interaction, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I was like, that's crazy.
Hey, look, I was at Sobe Stadium the other day, and there's a big on the side of the stadium, you and Gaby recognizing your
Yeah.
US Open win. So
Yeah, stuff like that is really, really cool. And yeah, definitely in New Zealand as well, obviously just trying to, fly the New Zealand flag and like make tennis more popular in New Zealand. And hopefully I can do that. Ultimately you want like kids, little girls to like I want them to like see me play and hope that they can like achieve anything. So hopefully that's kind of what's happening. But it's definitely really nice to be recognized. obviously in New Zealand and Canada. And yeah, I'm really grateful. It's been really fun, and hopefully I can just continue.
How about other players? I know it's a little bit, I don't want to say cutthroat, but you're all competing against each other. But do you get that recognition because you've been on tour for a number of years and you've really worked your way up and grinded it out? Do you get that recognition or comments from other players, whether it's doubles players, singles players, as you go tournament to tournament, just since the big result at the US Open last summer?
I think, yeah, I think we all, we're all competing against each other, but at the same time, there's like a mutual respect we all have for each other. And we know like the work that we're all putting in. We know the grind. We know how hard this life is and what it takes to get to the top. So I think there's definitely that level of respect, and definitely people are, they all say congratulations. I mean, and also, but the thing is on tour, it's hard because I keep a pretty close knit group of friends. Like you don't want to, I mean, it depends. A lot of people like have like a lot of people that they go to, but I think I stick with like,
The
Gaby and
core.
my team and like a couple core people. So those are, I think, the people that are really important to me, and they obviously all know, and we've celebrated together. And so, yeah, there's like a mutual respect, I think, with everyone. And obviously it's like really cool when it's kind of a story like that we had where it was, what was it, fourth or fifth tournament together or something like
It
that.
was really quick, yeah.
Yeah, it was quick. So I think that's like really cool, and any athlete can respect that and be like, that is quite cool, to have success really quickly. But yeah, definitely. I think we're all pretty supportive of each other mostly.
It's nice to hear. Yeah, you see in tennis sometimes, whether it's a singles player who catches lightning in a bottle and has one big tournament, but then maybe can't match that afterwards, or in doubles, a partnership that clicks early on, but then maybe can't sustain that. But the two of you have really backed it up with solid results, both in the fall swing, making the semifinals at the WTA year-end championship, and another finalist result recently in Miami. What is it that's evolved from that initial period where I don't want to say it was luck, but there must have been some luck involved too, given how quickly it gelled. But how have you
Yeah.
been able to, like, since then really consolidate and build on that and evolve as a tandem to keep it going?
Yeah, I think it's a fear that kind of everyone has when they have like a big result. I'd never had a big enough result where I could like actually have that like kind of downfall after, or like you have this like extra pressure or extra expectation, and then you kind of don't match it. I think the nice thing with me and Gaby is we're always communicating and we're always like talking about that, and that's always in the open. So like if we do feel something like that, we kind of know. And we know like how we can support each other and how we can still bring the best out of each other. And like if one of us is spiraling or something, the other one can kind of bring us back to where we need to be. And I think that's the lucky thing about doubles is, in singles, obviously you have your coaches and your team and all that can do that, but there's no one like directly right beside you that's having the exact same experiences. Where with us, it's like it brings a whole new set of challenges having a doubles partner like that, like beside you all the time. But also in that sense, it's like a good like, hey, snap out of it. Like, what, you know what I mean? Like you can kind of be like, hey, like we're process focused, these like negative thoughts or these thoughts that you have that are not really helpful, there's someone there that can always help you get back to where you want to be. Because I mean, we both know that we're like working towards the same thing, and I think we trust each other fully now. And I think the other thing is like we're still learning. Like we haven't even played a year together, and I think we kind of have to keep reminding each other of that. Like we obviously know each other a lot better than we did when we played US Open. But we also like are continuously learning about each other and kind of growing together. And I think, yeah, I think it's just, I don't really know how, but I would say the number one reason is just the open communication that we have, which is so funny because that's literally why I think when anyone asks us like how we won, it was like kind of because of the open communication. It's still like the same thing. Like we're both like just like way more comfortable when we know what each other's feeling and thinking, and then that obviously allows us to play. And then in that, pressing on that a little bit, or I guess separately, is the tennis games is I feel like we're still like getting even better. Like I feel like I watch Gaby on the court doing volleys in practice or something, and that makes me like a better volleyer. And like I hope vice versa, she can also learn from me. So that's another way that I think it's like we don't feel like we've really reached our peak, to be honest. And
Right.
I think that Gaby would probably say the same thing. So
Well, you two haven't even gone through a clay court season together, so I mean, it's still right.
never played a clay match. We've never played a clay match or a grass match together.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, that actually is crazy. The fact that we're gonna like start in Madrid and play second round and like literally have never played a clay court together on a clay court together. It's kind of hilarious.
We'll have to label you hard court specialists, I guess, for now.
Hopefully not, but
Right.
yeah, maybe. We don't know yet.
We see, I mean, the great communication that you talked about, we see that between the two of you on court, and we see how hard you work together in practice. What are you both like with each other off the court? Like, how would you describe your rapport? And what are some things that you do for fun together to help build that chemistry and camaraderie with each other?
I think one thing we like to do a lot is like, well, first of all, we don't spend all day every day together, and I think that's really important for both of us. Because I mean, ultimately, it is like a marriage. Like we are seeing each other more than we're seeing anyone else in our life right now in this stage in our life.
I hear you.
So we do we have like those boundaries where it's like, hey, I'm just gonna have dinner by myself, or like, I'm gonna go have coffee like alone, and neither of us are ever gonna be like, upset about that. But at the same time, we do get along really well off the court. So we'll try to go to nice dinners. We'll try to go do activities that aren't like at the courts, because obviously tennis is our whole lives, but we try to make it so it's not yeah, I think I'm trying to think of like probably just we both like to eat, so we're foodies, so that's
Mhm.
good. So we can go find some like good restaurants and stuff. Um, I'm more adventurous with what I eat, and Gaby is more picky, but she definitely is like trying more new foods, I think. And then also she's showing me like foods like I feel like I was telling her like that when I was young, like when my dad had to make dinner, he would make like frozen pierogies, and obviously Gaby being like half Polish, she was like, "Oh my god, pierogies." So stuff like that. Like I think we just yeah, we try to have fun off the court and on the court, but at the same time keep that balance. So yeah.
It's funny how you talk about she's the one you see the most in your life. Like that's how I feel almost about my podcast partner who couldn't be here for this interview. But me and Ben, like we joke with each other that I think I chat with him by text more than I chat with my wife. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we're just always doing this thing together. And yeah, when it comes time to like tournaments that we're covering at the same time, we don't hang out 24/7 because you still need that, that balance. And I think it keeps things
Yeah.
fresh between you. I would imagine there's probably some doubles tandems that you see and you're like, oh my goodness, they're together like all the time.
Yeah, I think there's like a really big difference between a lot of us. Like a lot of them, they do absolutely everything together. And then also in saying that, in when we were in China or in Asia, we ate almost every meal together, and we're staying at the same hotel, and that was like a lot more time together. Whereas like I don't know, for example, like Indian Wells, like I had one of my best friends come, and she was in a housing family. So we rarely spent any time together besides like on the court. So I think it depends on where we are. I think Europe will probably spend like more time together, but then we have like her coach is coming and my coach is coming, and we both work with both of them. So we'll have like that balance as well. And then maybe some family and stuff like that. So I think it just depends. And I think I mean, we do a pretty good job, I think, of figuring it out, and neither of us are going to get butt hurt. It's again the communication. We just need to like talk to each other about it. Obviously, sometimes I'm sure we like spend not enough time or too much, and we make mistakes. But I mean, we're all human. We're just trying to figure it out.
I think we'll use this as a promotional film for new doubles tandems to listen to, how to get it right.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny.
I wanted to ask you about some of the proposed, well, not proposed, they're going to be happening on the ATP Tour, the doubles changes that they're going to be
Oh yeah,
trialing starting this clay court season. And, some of the things I'm sure you've already heard, but like shorter time between points, the crowd can move between points. Half of the spots in the draws at these tournaments are going to be reserved for players based on their singles ranking. I'm wondering, A, do you think those changes are needed in the doubles world? And B, do you agree with any of them?
um, I don't agree with the singles ranking one. I think as a predominantly doubles player, it's really tough. But I mean, I think most singles players and most doubles players would say that, I mean, obviously it's tennis and that's how it is. But I mean, it's like a completely different sport, singles and doubles. So I think that's really tough. But I understand that they want like, you know, the bigger names that are still in the back end of the tournament. But I don't know. I don't see that really working, because if they're a bigger singles player in the back end of the tournament, they're not going to want to play doubles and they'll just get like even more withdrawals. Like, I don't know. It's a little alarming because I feel like they're trying to get rid of doubles and like not make it as important when it's like pretty cool. And I think people really like it. Like, the not, what was the other one? The not, people moving between points, like the spectators.
Yeah, apparently.
I mean, as someone with like a brain that's just like boo, 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 like all the time, like I can see how that's going to be like not easy. So I'll definitely
just wear
have to work
a visor, bring the visor down lower, you know?
Yeah. When I like do my like visualization, I'll have to like visualize like people like moving so that I'll like be not freaking out about it.
You have to bring more fans to your practice session and just have them moving around in the background.
Yeah, like have like my support team like just like making noises to prepare. And then the not sitting or something.
Yeah, I think some changeovers they're not going to allow sitting, so to like quicken things up or something, and 15 seconds between points instead of 25.
That sounds exhausting. I don't like any of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully that's like an ATP thing and it doesn't work, I guess. I don't know. If it happens, I'll manage it. I'll work with it. I'll deal with it. But no, I like the changeovers to like converse with Gaby and figure out what we're going to do. And it's not really about fitness either. Like obviously with doubles, with the half court, you're not really like winded ever. But it's more just like, a chance to like kind of turn your brain off and relax it and then go when you get up, which if you don't have that, that'll be like even more, I don't know, just go. So hopefully it doesn't work, I guess. I don't know.
Hopefully it fails.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a traditionalist in many ways with tennis, but I also see the need for the sport to evolve and stay relevant. But I just think it does a disservice to the game and to doubles players. And I think there's got to be better ways to promote it and just get it out there in front of fans. Because I've never heard a tennis fan come away from a doubles match and say, oh, that was really boring. You know, like if anything, just the opposite. Like they love how fast the points are, the reactions, the volleys, the teamwork. Yeah.
I actually agree. I've never ever heard someone come from a doubles match and be like, oh, that was so long. Like never. If anything, it's like the 5-set singles matches. People are like, that was like way too long. Like, can we make that shorter?
Right. Yeah. Like my kids would never sit through like 25% of that almost, you know? So
makes it like a baseball game.
Yeah. Hey, as we're on to the beginning stages of the clay court season, just to sort of wrap up with you and let you get going, but I wanted to ask what kind of clay court preparations you and Gaby have had. I'm assuming not many given your schedule just coming from China, but what preparations, what's the plan, and how much do you love or hate the surface as a doubles player on clay?
Well, luckily China was actually on red clay, I was surprised, but it was really nice because I got like a full week of training and practicing on it, and like I got 4 matches. So for me, that was really good because I love getting matches, and obviously it wasn't with Gaby, but that was really nice. I like red clay. I don't like green clay at all, but I really like red clay. I think sliding is not natural for me, but I've worked pretty hard over the years, so now I can slide, so that helps. Obviously it makes serving and volleying harder because they have more time to like, get it at your feet and kind of figure out where you're going. So that'll be an adjustment for us because we serve and volley a lot. So whether we do it, maybe a little less, who knows? And I think just like the poaching, because obviously once you start going in one direction, it's hard to go back in the other and there's less like faking. So I think it'll be like more set plays, which will be another adjustment. We're lucky because like we get to Madrid and since we have a bye, we almost have like a full week to train before we play. So I think that'll be really nice. Obviously with a little bit of altitude. Gaby's had a ton of success in Madrid. So I'll probably just ask her what her plans were the other years and kind of go from there because she loves playing there.
So it's going to be Madrid and then what other tournament before Roland Garros?
Madrid and Rome.
And then Roland Garros and then off to the grass courts.
Yeah, it's kind of quick.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to seeing what the two of you can do on clay and grass. Now, don't be too hard on yourselves. It's your first time as a team, so give yourself a
Yeah.
chance to get used to it. I'm going to ask you one final question, and this is like a totally selfish. It's a Mike McIntyre question. This has nothing to do with Tennis Canada on this one, okay? But could we ever get you over playing for the red and white, or are you representing New Zealand from now until you hang up the racket? I've always wanted. I hope you don't mind me asking. It comes from a good place. Just blink
No, that's
twice
okay.
if yes, or something.
That's okay. That's a valid question. And I don't think, you know what? No one's ever had the balls, I think, to ask me that. That's kind of
Wow.
funny.
There you go. Cool.
Um, Once you play Fed Cup for one country, for a senior, or sorry, Billie Jean King Cup for a senior country, you can't ever play for another country or represent Olympics for another country after you play for them.
Oh, really? Like ever?
No,
Wow.
I think they've changed the rules. I think because I feel like there's been a couple of people that maybe have played like one tie for one country and then they switched to play for another country, and then after a couple years of like sitting out, they were able to. But no, yeah, once you play now, it's like once you play for one, you can't switch to another.
Oh, well, that's a moot point then. Maybe that's why no one's asked you the question because maybe they knew that where I didn't. So,
Maybe,
yeah.
yeah. I've always said wish I could like kind of do the have two flags or not half a flag of each, but you know what?
I mean,
Once
you
when I
kind of
started,
do. I feel like you kind of do, right? In a way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. People that know actually really, that's been something that's happened over the past like playing with Gaby and like having more success is like people do know my story a little bit and they do know that I'm obviously also Canadian, which I really appreciate because before like when Gaby and I started playing in Montreal and we had like the Canadian fans, I was like, oh, that's how it like that's nice, and I kind of didn't or I had to explain it and now I don't have to explain it as much. So that's really nice.
They can just go back and listen to your first appearance on the podcast where you talk about the sailing adventure around the world that ended in New Zealand
Yeah.
for your parents, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then people know exactly my story. So that would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm sure New Zealand tennis fans are more than happy to call you their own when it comes to international play. And hey, look, our Canadian team is obviously doing great. They're the current reigning Billie Jean King Cup champions,
Totally.
and things worked out great with Layla and Gabby in doubles. I just know
Yeah.
that the two of you are obviously such a powerhouse team now that any country would love to have a duo like that. So we will settle for cheering you on in the WTA and Grand Slam events. And that's been more than enough based on the way you two have played. So congratulations again. We're really so proud of you both, and pass that along to Gabby for us. And
Well,
we look forward to seeing what you two do the rest of the season.
thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
There you have it. Mike's conversation with Erin Routliffe. And I mean, wow, you look at the rankings here and world number 5 in women's doubles. I think we talked about it at the front end of the year, but it's basically a lock. These two are going to be playing at the WTA finals later this season.
Seriously, I mean, given what they've already done this year and making the finals recently in what was it, Miami, and not having any clay court points to defend as a tandem. I know the doubles rankings are still individual. I think Gabby's fourth and Erin's fifth, but they've got so much they can also, gain in this portion of the year because if you think about it, a year ago, they were both admittedly kind of struggling, and that's what brought them together is the fact that they weren't clicking with the partners they were playing with. They were looking for something new. And then 4 or 5 tournaments into that partnership, my goodness, they're Grand Slam champions. And so, there's so much they can still achieve. I thought it was pretty funny how Erin remarked that they've never played a clay court match together or a grass court match together. And so
Yeah.
these are going to be firsts for them. They're a top 10 doubles partnership, and they've never even played together on 2 of the 3 main surfaces on the tour.
Yeah, that's a bit unbelievable to think about it. But then as you look back at when they formed this partnership, and we've seen in the past, like Gabby playing with, Luisa Stefani of Brazil, Juliana Olmos of Mexico, and obviously having success on the clay. I don't think there's any reason. I mean, I don't think we've ever really talked about clay court specialists in doubles necessarily. There's no reason to think their game and this tandem is not going to translate well across all surfaces. And it will be interesting just in the altitude, how they adapt to sort of the quicker clay in Madrid. But something tells me they're going to be ready to go for sure.
Yeah, they've got fantastic communication between the two of them. And I like how she said their partnership sort of thrives in the sense that they don't spend all of their time, attached at the hip. that they still take time for each other,
It's
quiet
like you
time,
and me,
and they
Mike.
well, that's what I said in the interview actually is I
Yeah,
said it's like you and me when we're working a tournament together. I mean, we still see each other a ton, but
yeah.
we both got to do our own things as well. And so, yeah, I joke that that's what makes our partnership work well on Match Point Canada too. And she seemed to, have a chuckle at that. But great to have her back on. It'd be cool to have both of them on simultaneously at some point to do a podcast with two guests, which, to be honest, I don't think we've done that too often, if ever. So maybe that's something we should try to incorporate as we
Yeah.
progress and continue to, find our rhythm. But thanks again to Erin for joining us, and very much looking forward to seeing what they can do when they hit the clay, leading up to Roland Garros.
Yeah, and speaking of hitting the clay and hitting the ground running, I would say on the change of surface, if we look at Stuttgart this past week, Elena Rybakina just an unbelievable week of tennis and knocking out Iga Swiatek in a tough three-setter in the semifinals. One of three-set victories on the week before she beats Marta Kostyuk, who's having a very nice season, 6-2, 6-2 in the finals. And I said this earlier in the year, like if we just, you take out that blip at the Australian Open, and Rybakina has had this incredible season. She has 3 titles already, and she's proven up to the task to beat Iga in big matches as well.
Hey, look, if you take away the couple of tournaments where she's had to withdraw because of injury concerns or whatnot, the actual tournaments that she's completed from start to whenever she loses by being beaten by her opponent, aside from, like you said, the Aussie Open, she's won Abu Dhabi, made finals in Qatar, finals in Miami, and now she transitions to clay and wins in Stuttgart. I mean, is there a player that's been more consistently incredible since the Aussie Open than her? And the answer is no. And that's impressive too, given that Iga's been playing some terrific tennis as well. I mean, to me right now, Elena Rybakina is the force on the WTA tour, and she's proven that regardless of what surface she's playing on.
Yeah, and look, obviously the first Grand Slam of the season went to Arena Sabalenka. She plays unbelievably well in Australia. I think she's going to be dangerous for years to come on that surface. She's notably taken a dip since Australia, obviously suffering that tragedy as well. Someone close to her passing away, I think, was a bit of a setback, understandably so, of course. And Iga, she's had a very, very good season, but has had her moments of vulnerability. Rybakina is right there. So, and I think you got this right, maybe with your clay court power rankings. It was kind of the debate of like who's number 2 behind Iga as you head into Roland Garros. I think right now it has to be Elena.
Yeah, and this is no disrespect to Iga Swiatek, who,
No.
as I look ahead at some of your notes here, I'm just going to skip ahead to this one because it seems timely. But she's now spent 100 weeks at number one, and I think you were going to ask me, like, does it feel like that long? And to me, it does, because she's been so incredibly consistent over that stretch, including sometimes where she appears absolutely unbeatable. And the one thing I'll say about Iga is every time she loses, it still kind of surprises me, which I
Yeah.
think speaks volumes to the fact that we just look at her as someone who should be winning most of the time. I don't quite feel the same way with Rybakina, Sabalenka, and Coco Gauff, although Rybakina to me has really closed that gap with how she's played the last 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, I find with Iga, it takes something very special to beat her. And we do see that obviously from time to time. And Rybakina did exactly that in Stuttgart. And you could feel the momentum that she had from that semifinal win. It was like overcoming the obstacle of Iga Swiatek, and she felt unstoppable when she reached the final after getting through that semi, where Kostyuk really couldn't hang with her from the back of the court. 100 weeks, it feels long to me as well, but at the same time, it doesn't feel that long since we were watching Ash Barty. And it's incredible to think that she wrapped up her career with that incredible win on her home soil in Australia, said goodbye. The whole tennis world was stunned, stepped aside, and there was such a question mark of like, who's going to properly take the reins? And Iga proved such a worthy number one from the get-go. So credit to her, 100 weeks. You have to think at this stage of her career, she's still so young. I mean, 200 is certainly a possibility. I'm not going to maybe speak about records and numbers after that, but she's going to add a number of weeks to this tally, I think, when it's said and done.
Yeah, we've talked about what's on the line for her at Roland Garros in terms of already at a young age, how she can leapfrog players like Serena Williams if she captures a fourth title there, and I believe I mentioned recently on the pod like Ty Justine Henin. Like
Yeah.
these are some pretty incredible names that she might be joining their company. And when you look at Grand Slam champions on the women's side, to me, there's like four different tiers. You've got the all-time greats like Steffi Graf, Navratilova, Chris Everett, definitely in like tier one.
Yeah.
Then you've got like Venus Williams to me, Justine Henin, Hingis, and Sharapova in kind of like tier two with like
I
four,
agree.
five or more slam titles. Then you've got the Ash Bardys, Osakas, Capriatis, and
Davenport, maybe.
Swiatek,
Yeah.
Davenport. And
Yeah.
Swiatek is
Yes.
already in that
Yeah.
phase. And then if you go a little further down, you've got like the Haleps, Azarenkas, and Garbine Muguruza, who recently announced her retirement, which we can touch upon as well. But the fact that Swiatek at the age of 22 is already in that third tier, very close to moving into that second tier of what I consider all-time greats in women's tennis. And considering how many years she's got ahead of her, yeah, I don't know if tennis really has given her proper due yet, to be honest.
Yeah, she has superstar numbers. I think we should treat her as the superstar she is, and obviously on this podcast we try and highlight her qualities as much as we can. Good segue to Garbine Muguruza, who I won't call the retirement surprising because she'd obviously stepped away from the game, and I think at some point late last year she checked in and they asked like, how's it going? Like, are you interested in getting back into tennis? And she sort of said like, I'm living my life. I'm not thinking about tennis. So when I heard that, I really thought, yeah, this might be the end for Muguruza, who I think, a career with some peaks and valleys. And then you look at the peaks and you say, wow. And the biggest stat to me is she's the only player in women's tennis history and will be the only player in women's tennis history to defeat both Venus and Serena Williams in Grand Slam finals. No one else is going to manage that. So that's an incredible feat, which tells you sort of when she was at her very best, she could beat the very best. I sometimes wish we would see it more often. But I think if you look back at the end of that 2022 season, the way she wrapped that up with that WTA finals victory, we saw what she's so capable of with her power tennis, which was unbelievable when it's on.
Yeah, she still absolutely had it. And that's a career that most tennis players, male or female, would say, I would absolutely take
Oh yeah.
those accomplishments, two Grand Slam titles, world number one, winning the WTA finals, as you mentioned, and also making the finals of three different slams on three different surfaces, which is not something that every player could even dream about accomplishing. So to me, I think it's Hall of Fame worthy. I have no doubt
Yeah.
we'll
Oh,
see her
100%.
there at some point. And as much as I would have liked to have seen her come back and see what she still had left in the tank, she seems to me to be someone who's just absolutely content and satisfied leaving the game on her own terms right now.
Yeah, yeah, she's very much in that camp. Like when I think of that quality of player, I think of Garbine, Kerber, and Halep actually sort of in that same similar category, and they kind of came up at the same time. We're heading now into Madrid. Iga will be the top seed, of course. Naomi Osaka getting back on the clay, which is quite awesome. Emma Raducanu getting a wild card. She played really well last week in Stuttgart. Anything you're looking for, I guess, from Madrid to tell us about the women before we talk some men's tennis?
I mean, I'm just getting excited to approaching Roland Garros now, even though we've still got some major clay court tournaments to go. I tell you one last thing on the women's side. I am excited for Bianca Andreescu to return
Yeah.
to tennis. And on her Instagram, she did a little Q&A with her fans today as we record this on Monday. And someone asked when she would be coming back, and she said she's going to play a tournament the week before Roland Garros. So looks like all systems are a go. And that's just going to make Canadian tennis fans and Bianca tennis fans so very happy to see a very, very capable top 20, top 30 tennis player. As soon as she steps back on the court, I put her at top 30 potential in terms of what she brings with her game.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. If we talk some men's tennis just quickly with Barcelona, cool to get a repeat of the same final that we had in Monte Carlo. Tsitsipas defeating Casper Ruud in the finals of Monte Carlo. Then we head to the ATP 500. It's astonishing that Casper Ruud had never won one of these before, so I'm very happy for him, honestly. He avenges the loss to Tsitsipas with a straight sets win to win Barcelona, biggest title of his career. And for me, just from the early reviews of clay, I think both of these two guys have to be top five contenders when the French Open rolls around.
Absolutely. And first of all, can I just say how weird it is to see any tennis player jumping in that pool in Barcelona aside from Rafa Nadal? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's true.
I know they named the center court after him. They should probably name that pool after him as well. Or at least, something in that vicinity, maybe the changing room to the pool house or something,
Yeah.
But yeah, to see Ruud and CC Pass, by the way, I should mention both former Match Point Canada guests who we've spoken to in
Hmm.
person here in Toronto. So that's pretty cool. And for Ruud, it just always amazes me what he's done coming from Norway, which is not a tennis hotbed by any stretch. I was looking at the next highest ranked Norwegian player, and it's number 489 in the world. And there's only three of them in total inside the top 1,000. So,
Wow.
what he's done is incredible. And you wonder if we'll see in about 5, 10 years, like this surge of Norwegian tennis players who've been inspired by him. He's a very humble guy. We really enjoy it. You chatted with him, I believe,
Yeah,
on
I
the
did.
podcast a couple years ago, and yeah, he's had success in Toronto, quarterfinals in Toronto, semifinals in Montreal. He'll be back in Montreal this summer, and just someone who's absolutely established himself at the age of 25 as a, you know, very consistent top 10 presence to me.
Yeah, no, no, definitely. And he's obviously making that push now that he's on his favorite surface. Rafael Nadal did get that opportunity in Barcelona to play again, the 12-time champion. Obviously, number 13 was not in the cards, but he did win a match before losing to Alex de Minaur in his second round match. And I think the most important takeaway was that he got to say goodbye to the home crowd of Barcelona because he has confirmed 2024 is the final year.
Yeah, it's still hard to believe when you say that, it's almost like you don't want it to be true. And you just hope he can make it through the year on his own terms and get to play a few of the tournaments that have been special to him and say goodbye to those fans. Tough to play de Minaur this early in a
Yeah.
tournament. I mean, I know Yannick Sinner was the most improved on the ATP last year, but really I consider in some ways de Minaur to have been equally as worthy of that recognition with all that he did, making the top 10 for the first time. And even on clay, I mean, that's not a guy that you can ever catch sleeping because he's going to give 110% and just go right to the wall for every point. And they could play each other again now in Madrid if Rafa gets by, what is it, a 16-year-old
Yeah.
American wild card.
Darwin Branch, I believe, who had a hilarious Snapchat story because he posted WTF, I'm playing Nadal round one in Madrid and he's 16 years old. He's playing his second main draw match of an ATP event and he gets to play Rafa in Madrid. I mean, what a cool opportunity. Like you're 16 years old. I think I read as well, this is the largest age gap between two players in ATP Masters 1000 history.
Wow.
16-year-old against Nadal, who he turns 38 in a couple months. So that's pretty astonishing. So I'm sure he'll get an experience to remember. And Rafa, I think for him, he was very positive about how he performed in Barcelona and says he had to be kind of cautious with his movements, but the good thing is he's feeling okay and he called it a positive step forward. So I think we see him make an extra push. I just think, de Minaur is a hard matchup for him right now. Who's someone who's going to make the rallies really long and physical. Like that's probably one of the last guys I'd want to run into early in tournaments. So we'll see how he handles that.
Absolutely agree. And one other thing that Nadal recently announced, actually, I saw Roger Federer announce it, is that Rafa is going to be joining Team Europe for the Laver
Yeah.
Cup in Berlin later this year. So, gosh, I hope we don't have to go through another emotional farewell at the Laver Cup like we did with Roger. I can't handle it.
That was a lot. That was a lot last time. Novak Djokovic withdrawing from this event, which I was a little bit surprised by because you'd think he'd want a few more reps, but he has had a lot of success in Rome. So I gather he's waiting for the Rome event. What that means is it pushes Yannick Sinner to the number one seed. There were questions around Carlos Alcaraz's arm injury, but he is a go and he will be the number two seed. And he's aiming to become the first player ever to win three straight in Madrid, which is probably like one of the only clay events for the men's you can say that for. Nadal has probably won all the others three times in a row. So good opportunity for Carlitos. We'll see how healthy he is. And I should mention Felix Auger-Aliassime, Denis Shapovalov, both in the field. Felix won a couple matches last week in Munich before losing to the winner, Jan Lennard Struff.
Yeah, so it'd be nice to see them have a little bit of success here, start building towards Roland Garros. I mean, I don't know about you, but I get asked all the time lately, like, hey, what's going on with Canadian tennis? And I'm like, hey,
I
wait a
know.
minute. Have you not paid attention to the Billie Jean King Cup and Davis Cup victories we've had the last 2 years? But aside from those team competitions, it is a fair statement to make. Tennis fans have been hungry for a Grand Slam success story like Bianca in 2019 or Leila Annie Fernandez in 2021, making it deep. And yeah, we just haven't had it since then. And unfortunately, it kind of seems like it's not even in the realm of being close at the moment. Like I would be happy to see one of these guys or women make it to, the second week in Madrid or make it to the quarters in Madrid. And
Hmm.
maybe between them and Leila Annie Fernandez, that's something we'll see. But Canadian tennis fans definitely look, we've got our appetite, sort of wet from what's gone on the last few years, and we want to see that continued progression. Unfortunately, just hasn't been in the cards lately, but I still hold out hope that it could just be a hot streak away from one of these players to have a run, especially someone like a Denis Shapovalov, who we know can be so streaky and has the talent to push anybody.
I think always with Dennis, you're just waiting for him to catch lightning in a bottle, and it hasn't quite happened yet. I feel like he's been very close this year and made some positive strides, so I'm holding out hope. I want to give credit quickly as we wrap up to Alexei Galarneau, who I believe has achieved a career high ranking around 160 after a really good run of challenger events. When we saw him at Davis Cup, he was coming back from an injury. He's played three straight clay court events, quarters, final, semis, and his ranking now charging towards the top 150. So there's a positive sign and a player trending up in Canada, which is always great to see.
And another one of the nice guys and friend of the podcast. So
For sure.
always look forward to running into Alexi. Anyhow, looking forward to seeing how Madrid plays out. We'll be back next week. Another great guest coming up. I'm not going to reveal right now, but we've had a real good stretch lately
We
with
have.
guests on Matchpoint Canada. Thanks again to Erin Routliffe, who joined us this week. And tennis fans, we will talk to you next time.